All right, thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning. We are live to the website at KGNS.TV. We're live to the KGNS app. We're live to our Facebook page, and we are live to our YouTube channel as well. It's Wednesday. It's time for another episode of All's in This Together. I'm filling in for Jerry Gadasa, but Mindy Caso is here with me this morning. Mindy, how are you?
That's right. We are excited that you have joined in. You're filling the shoes of Jerry, who wasn't able to make it today. But we're always excited to have you because we were just on this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just an extension of the
Here
morning
we are
show.
Again. Exactly. Getting closer to the walk in November, Mindy, and we're going to talk about something that every nonprofit organization is in need of, and that's volunteers. Exactly. And at the Alzheimer's Association, the walk, everything related to the Alzheimer's groups is in need of volunteers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you're a nonprofit, a 501, and you just don't have the funds to hire a staff of 100 people, and, you know, sometimes volunteers seem as if they do the work of 100 people, but they're volunteers, so they aren't getting paid for that. Yeah. So we are definitely at that point in the walk that we are really needing some volunteers to help us. Last year's walk had an amazing amount of volunteers. We had 700 walkers, and the volunteers for that day, you know, do all kinds of really cool stuff. And just the end of your time volunteering, whether it's with the Alzheimer's group or any other nonprofit group, you just feel so gratified, and you feel like you really spent that time doing God's work and doing something that just makes you feel good. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Yes. And we have a very special guest who's here with us today who can tell us all about that.
Yeah, Melissa Guerra is joining us this morning, and she knows a thing or two about volunteerism and the Alzheimer's Association. Melissa, good morning. Good to see you again.
Good morning.
You know, Melissa, we were just talking right before we started this morning. You've been with the Alzheimer's Association for 20 years.
Just about 20 years, just shy of 20 years.
Wow. And you're still wearing your purple today.
I'm still wearing my purple.
I think you bleed purple after 20 years of volunteering for the Alzheimer's group.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. So I don't know, should we jump right into it? Because I know you are a wealth of knowledge, especially when it comes to Alzheimer's. Personal experience. That started off, of course, sadness with your dad passing away from it. But tell us a little bit about your journey through the Alzheimer's Association.
It has been amazing. When I was asked to or had the opportunity to start the support group, didn't exactly know what I was doing. Figured somebody other than an accountant should run a support group for starters. But once I got into it, the first two groups were huge. They were way too big for a normal support group. It took a couple of months before we finally settled down. And once we settled down, I mean, it just kind of went smoothly. There were not every single month were there new people, but there was a group of people that just kind of continued their journey with us, and slowly somebody else would come along and they'd get into the group, and it was just fluid the whole 20 years. And I can't believe I did that for 20 years, but things changed.
And I remember, because I think when you started the Alzheimer's support group, I think you came on the morning show.
You were my first interview ever.
Yeah, I can't believe that was 20 years ago. Okay, we are totally dating ourselves here.
We sure are.
But I remember thinking, you are definitely one of those individuals who is doing God's work, because obviously you're not getting paid for it.
Nope.
And you chose to do it because you didn't want others to go through what you and your siblings were going through.
Exactly.
With your dad having to learn on the go. And you wanted others to have resources and knowledge so that they could navigate through the Alzheimer's diagnosis a little easier. Tell us about that and what, the driving force behind your volunteerism.
Pretty much we were lost. We were trying to figure everything out on the fly, like you said. I didn't know who else to talk to. There was nobody else to talk to. I was in constant contact with the association at some point, calling the 800 number, whether I was talking at that point in time to somebody in Chicago, or whether I was dialing San Antonio directly, they had somebody on staff that could talk me off the ledge, calm me down. And there was just nobody else to talk to because it's such a hard disease. You don't really want to talk about it. You don't know who else is going through it. Plus, I realized everybody goes through it differently. My situation isn't a situation you're going to see, isn't a situation somebody else is going to see. They're all different, but in effect, they're all the same because you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what's next, and they can't tell you. There's no predictions. There's no how to. You just kind of have to think fast and stop situations from happening. So one of the reasons I started the support group was because I didn't have anybody. I had an aunt who had dealt with it with her husband. I talked to her for a little bit, and her last words were the two things that she said: you need to start a support group. You'd be good at it. I don't know if I was. And second, you just have to learn to deal with it, basically, is what she said. There's no right way, there's no wrong way, but getting into a room with other people gives other people the opportunity. Oh, I wonder if that'll work for me.
Exactly.
And this is where you go when you need, just go someplace and just walk away for a minute, because that's what you have to do occasionally.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I wanted, Melissa, at what point after you got started, like how long after you got started with all of this, did you start to see people that wanted to help the group, people that not necessarily had been affected by a family member, but people who were just wanting more information about the disease? Did that happen immediately, or did it take some time for people to start to want to know more about the support group, even though they may not have been personally affected?
pretty much the way it started, there were a lot of people who thought it was a lecture. There were a lot of people who thought I was going to teach you how to get through whatever issue I was getting through at that point in time. And that's not what the support group was. The support group was just basically bringing people together who are going through the disease and who are don't think they're the only people out there.
Right.
So it gives them a sounding board for, I could talk about anything because you understand what I'm going through. And so occasionally, yes, I would have people that came in and I was like, well, I just want to find out a little bit more. And they would never show up because of the topics that we were talking about, whether it was bad behavior, whether it was really bad behavior, or driving issues or whatever it was.
Right.
So some people would just show up thinking they were getting info, and then I don't think I'm looking at Alzheimer's. I got to go, and they would never show up again. But it just depends.
It's a hard subject to
It
talk
is.
about
It is.
because you know that the end game, is that there is not a cure for
Yes.
Alzheimer's. So to hear the gravity of what your loved one could possibly begin going through, is really hard. But being able to talk about it and providing your volunteer services, of course, having a platform to talk about it, I'm sure just really resonated with a lot of people who needed that. Yeah.
Did it ever turn into, did anything spawn off of that, Melissa, where people wanted to now give information about Alzheimer's? Do you remember a time when maybe not within your support group, but people started to realize we need to start talking about Alzheimer's? Do you remember a point in that ever happening where people just wanted to now give information about Alzheimer's?
Not necessarily, but a few years into it, I kept after the Alzheimer's Association to start making connections here. I was trying desperately to get something other than just a support group. For years, we only had the support group. We're starting to, in talking to them, there was this memory walk, which is a precursor to the Walk to End Alzheimer's.
The first one.
And I wanted to take some time off. I wanted to get on that committee in San Antonio, see what it's about, see if I could start one here. That never really came to fruition. And I asked them over and over, and I'd get people to come in for the support group, and it's like, when are they going to do something here? Well, I don't know. I'm asking them. Every time you guys ask me, I ask.
Right.
So it took years, but I mean,
Yeah, but eventually they heard your voice loud and clear.
Yes,
Because
yes.
in that 20-year period, you saw the first the first walk here
Yes.
in Laredo.
Yes.
How did that come about?
It was just we kept asking, and I think it was the right leadership at that time with the organization that came in, and they made it happen. They approached me, and I'm like, I have nothing to do. I don't know how to organize any of this. So on the fly, I had to learn how to fundraise, how to talk to people, interviews. I was getting in with meetings, Rotaries, and just all sorts of meetings, and just talking about Alzheimer's in general. And a lot of times it was blind looks, like I'm getting really uncomfortable. But then other times there'd be a crowd going, I'm really going through this. Right. So there were a lot of people who didn't come through the support group, but who needed to talk. And so, just kind of blew up after that.
Right.
But I managed the first 3, and I'm just, I can't believe I did that.
And from, the first 3 that you managed, to see it now just growing with volunteers, and now we have such an active Alzheimer's Association here.
Presence, yeah.
Exactly, with PV and Maxine and the association that are, here very often. That's all because of you. I mean, you started all of this 20 years ago. It must be very surreal for you to see where you were 20 years ago and where it is now.
And I always tell people that'll hear me, I really didn't do anything, and they just slap me silly.
You just had a very loud voice and a very passionate voice because of your dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to remember that this came from a personal experience.
I was real sensible when it came to, I knew exactly what was going to happen. The night, I had to take my dad for the diagnosis, so the night before that I read whatever I could, and ALZ.org was nothing like it is today. When I read just enough, and then I had to take him to the doctor. I mean, I knew going in what was going to happen. I just didn't know how. I didn't know when. Right. But I knew it was going to be a tough road eventually.
How long did your dad live with Alzheimer's?
We probably started noticing things in the late 90s, 98, 99, just kind of, not repetitive, but embellishing stuff. And then he was getting a little ornery, or just mad or whatever. And then it started getting worse probably in the early 2000s. And I think from 2002 to 2004, it was pretty bad. I got kicked out of the house. I didn't live at home, but I got kicked out of the house. Don't ever come home. Don't ever come here again. Okay. Took a couple of weeks, and then he let me back in. But, it's just kind of things like that I don't know. I'm just real sensible about stuff like that. It's the disease talking, exactly. And I can move on from this. I'm good.
Exactly. And having the group of volunteers allows you to be able to talk about things like this, so that you do desensitize yourself from it, because you know that it's coming from the disease and it's not coming from the person.
That's the one thing that I always told people in the support group. You got to remember, the parent you knew, the sibling you knew, that doesn't exist anymore. There's a person in front of you that's related to you, and they have a disease, and they can't control it, and you can't control it, and you can't be mad about it, because they're going to say things. They're going to, kick you out of the house, and welcome you back eventually. So, it's the most rabid, radical disease out there.
Yeah.
And every story is different.
Every story is different. Everyone.
We're talking about several things this morning on All's in This Together. First of all, there is a support group that continues on the first Tuesday of every month at 6:30 in the evening. That's at the UT Education and Research Center, which is at 1937 Bustamante. So again, the first Tuesday of every month, 6:30, UT Education and Research Center. It's important to get that information out, because that support group does exist in Laredo for folks who need to talk about what's happening with their family members, with their loved ones. Also, if you're on our Facebook page, Maxine has posted a link for volunteering, and we've been kind of mixing in volunteering this morning as well, because the big Walk to End Alzheimer's is right around the corner, November the 4th.
November the 4th, that's right.
And so, Did you have to go out and get volunteers when you did the walks, Melissa? Do you remember having to do
You
that?
know, my first committee was my sister, me, and maybe about 2.5 other people, and we doubled the second year, we tripled the third year. But volunteers, we just had to. There's a couple of people that are involved now that we didn't know then, so it was just phone calls and who you knew and what you did for a living. I had a teacher. She said, "Oh, I get teachers involved. I can get schools involved," and we did. But yeah, we didn't have There were a couple of groups that came through, but not many. We did manage to get a band to lead the walk around, which was great. And then that brought cheerleaders. That brought, let's get more cheerleaders. Let's, do things like that. So it kind of fell into place. But the first year was pretty. It was us. It was about. I think several people stepped up the day of, but they hadn't been there the whole planning.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of, trying to figure out what we were
but
doing.
like with every event, that's how they start.
I know.
That's
I
how
know.
it starts, and then after that, it just grows and grows.
And very little support from the community also.
Yeah.
So the fact that we broke every record the first 3 years
Exactly.
just still amazes me.
And I think that a lot of folks in the very beginning, when you started off 20 years ago, were also learning about Alzheimer's. I mean, obviously, Alzheimer's has been around, for decades and decades and decades and more than that. But learning about it and finding out that this is an actual disease and not just dementia. It's not just an old folks disease. I'm not just losing my memory because there's an actual diagnosis. And
Yes.
I think that when you started the group 20 years ago, I think you opened up the door for people to start understanding and learning more about the actual disease. And little by little, with every year, we're learning more about it.
Yes.
Definitely. Well, I want to talk a little bit about some opportunities for volunteering with the Alzheimer's Association. First of all, our next event that we have planned is, I've got my little cheat notes right here. It's going to be on Thursday, September the 21st. So that's going to be the Caregivers Conference. And this is very important. This is the first time that we do a Caregivers Conference, which anyone out there that is taking care of a loved one with Alzheimer's knows how stressful it can be. And Melissa, of course, you can talk about this, and you have been talking about this. So this is a conference that's specifically for caregivers, so that caregivers can learn about the resources out there, hear from specialists who are going to be at this caregiver conference. And of course, there's always volunteer opportunities for those who might want to be a part of it on that day. So this is going to be Thursday, September 21st. It's going to be at the UT Health Science Center on Bustamante Street that Ruben just gave the address for. And the Caregivers Conference is going to be from 9 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. So for folks who would like to just be out there, help sign in individuals, maybe be a hostess, serving coffee, things like that, this is definitely one opportunity that you can do so. And to sign up for a volunteer, Melissa, we were just talking about this. The phone number to volunteer for any of the events that we have going on is the 1-800 number, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that would be
1-800-272-3900.
That's right. 1-800-272-3900 is that one-stop phone number that literally is the clearinghouse for anything Alzheimer's. And
Give me that number again, Mindy.
okay, it's 1-800-272-3900. Melissa, talk a little bit about what folks who call in that number can get from that number.
They can get a total stranger that you can just cry. That's what I did the first couple of times.
Wow.
That's all I had. And I was talking to somebody out of state, basically. I think all their call-in center went through Chicago at the time. But there were times when something had happened last night, and I couldn't get the words out. I'm trying to talk through sobs, and they would just sit there and listen to me and just give me the opportunity. So it is very powerful. But at the same time, they've got a whole database of info that as soon as they get a keyword, they just start looking for it and they start talking you off the ledge. So they were amazing the first 20 times I called them. And it was always whenever we're moving to another situation. So,
and I understand that this hotline or service line is available 24 hours
24/7.
in multiple different languages as well, because they are connected with people who can speak many different languages, like I mentioned, and 24/7. So you don't have to worry about it being 2:00 in the morning and an episode happening and you not being able to turn to somebody. So that's always a wonderful thing. But this line, along with providing counseling services and walk me off the ledge services, is also a clearinghouse for volunteerism. So
Yes.
you can call that number, tell them where you live at and what opportunities, what events are coming up, and how could you help and be a part of making somebody's life a little easier. So one number to remember, 1-800-272-3900. There's also another opportunity, got to go back to my little cheat notes here, but along with the Caregivers Conference on September 21st, this is the very first time that our local Alzheimer's Association group is going to have a poker run. So for all those individuals out there who love riding motorcycles, and we know we have a big motorcycle community here in Laredo, this poker run is going to be a whole lot of fun. It's called the Riding to End Alzheimer's Poker Run. It's taking place on Saturday, October 21st. Melissa, do you ride a motorcycle?
No, I do not.
Really?
But I would gladly ride with somebody who knows how.
You know, I told somebody that exact thing. I said, I don't ride a motorcycle, but I know that you do. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, if you give me a ride from place to place, it would be a whole lot of fun.
It's slow motion. I'm good with that. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. If we can go 3 miles an hour, put your helmet on, of course, that would be great. So I want to read a little bit of the flyer for our viewers who have tuned in this morning. Once again, we're talking about volunteering opportunities. So I'm going to talk to anybody out there about how you can volunteer for this event, as well as how you can participate in this event. So it is Saturday, October 21st. Registration, you can register at the Laredo Harley-Davidson. So we want to thank them, of course, for helping us put this together. They're located at 418 Crossroads. Of course, that's in North Laredo. It's $20 a rider, $10 for passenger. So Mel, you and I would fall in the
There you go.
$10.
Yep.
The $10. And Ruben, do you ride a motorcycle?
I do not know.
Okay,
Barely ride a bicycle, so you know.
So we can be passengers.
Yes.
We can be passengers if somebody will take us around. Definitely. For more information, contact PV. Of course, we talk to PV all the time. That number to get more information is area code 210-963-5638. But it is $10 for passenger and $20 for rider, and registration is from 10 to 12. Now, as far as the actual event, it does kick off at 1 o'clock, and it's going to be from 1 to 4, so 3 hours of fun. There's going to be a whole lot of really cool events taking place there at Harley-Davidson. Live music, we've got great food. We're going to have a 50-50 door prize as well. Everybody loves that. You get to take off with half of the dough, half of the loot, and there's going to be free beverages there. Don't know if there's going to be adult beverages there, but there will be some free beverages there. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Once again, this is on Saturday, October 21st. There's going to be a lot of volunteering opportunities. We are going to need a lot of help out there, serving those free beverages, selling 50-50 tickets, and, you know, just going around and making sure everybody is having a whole lot of fun.
Melissa, have you had a chance to sort of step back and everything that Mindy just mentioned and realize, wow, you know, this is something that was not around 20 years ago? I mean, does it really hit you? I mean, do you ever stop and think, goodness gracious, this is amazing?
It is. Yeah, no, I do. Every time I hear something new coming up, it just, I mean, we didn't know anybody at the time, therefore we couldn't talk to anybody at the time. I didn't have the connections. So yeah, anything that happens from here on out is finally, it's great.
How important are these events for raising awareness about Alzheimer's?
They're very important. The Alzheimer's Association would probably have a table. They'd have people talking to, handing out flyers, handing out, whatever freebies they've got, and they'd be talking about Alzheimer's in general. Any kind of function is really important. Because there's always table opportunities to hand out info. So, and for those people that don't really want to know, I mean, they'll kind of grab one and take it home, read it later, and it's like, oh, okay. So, it's a great opportunity any way you look at it.
But you think about the research and everything that needs to happen for a cure for Alzheimer's, and the awareness is important for those reasons as well, for people to know, hey, there's people that are trying to combat this and we need help, not just volunteer-wise, but monetarily as well.
Yes.
I would imagine that the awareness is extremely important for the research aspect of it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the fundraisers are the walks, fundraisers like these where the money is going to go to the Alzheimer's Association. Mm-hmm. Anything that's raised does go to research. There's very little that they rely on volunteers all the time. Mm-hmm. So, exception of a few paid staff that will be around, it's all volunteer driven. And so, but all monies raised go to research, and research is important. I mean, they've made a couple of strides here recently.
They sure have.
So, anything helps. I mean, and the tests on what's out there right now are very favorable. I wish they, would have been at a different point earlier, but, it is what it is, and anything from this point forward is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this past year, with those new medications that have come about is just an amazing thing. A part of the money also from these fundraisers is able to, we are seeing a lot of it stay here in Laredo for the services that are provided thanks to the UT Health Science Center being able to host us there for the conference, and of course for the support groups, and just being able to be a resource for people. We're very fortunate that some of the money that we're raised gets to stay here for that, so we're excited about that. But I was going back to that caregivers conference. I was reading some of the information. You were talking about how critical information is for those who are caring for Alzheimer's patients. There at the caregiver conference, folks are going to be able to hear from a local physician about dementia and care. They're going to be able to hear more about hospice care and the benefits of hospice care, financial planning, which I know, Melissa, you had to go through all of that as well. Legal conversations. A lot of folks don't realize that you will need some legal help about towards the end of your loved one's life. It's going to be very important, and how to manage through self-care. We all know that as a caregiver, all of your time and dedication and energy is going towards your loved one, but you can't forget about yourself too. There's a lot of self-care that you need to provide for yourself, because you need to be there for your own mental health, and of course you need to be strong for your loved one too, and that takes a lot of strength. So they're going to talk about that at length. So once again, that's Thursday, September 21st. Registration for the Caregivers Conference, you can register also by calling that 1-800 number 272-3900 for that as well. So that one number is a big clearinghouse.
I do want to direct folks also to the website, which is a wealth of information, and it's interesting, Melissa said that it's changed over the years, but it really is a good place to go, and I'm sharing the screen of alz.org. It's got the 24/7 helpline number on there and lots of other information. That's where you can get the volunteer information as well. I was showing the link a little while ago. If you're following us on Facebook, Maxine has posted some things as well, including the Caregivers Conference and the ride, which I had that information on the screen as well. So really, as we start to wrap up here, of course, you can also donate on the website as well. That's never a bad thing.
And you can create your team on the website as well. So we've talked about the poker run, the Caregivers Conference, the Alzheimer's Walk, the big one, the crescendo of all of our efforts. Of course, once again, that's November 4th. Sign up your team on the website like Ruben was just mentioning.
All right. And based on what I saw last year, which was the first one I had been to, there's a lot of volunteers that are going to be there and that are still needed. So everyone's invited to volunteer.
It's a fun group activity for volunteers.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Last year was our very first one, and literally when you walk onto the TAMIU campus, when you get to the area that's been designated, you see all of those gorgeous flowers with the different colors that represent the different groups that are represented by Alzheimer's caregivers and family members, and that one white flower that represents, of course, the future. But so many volunteers are needed for November 1st. So I do want to invite the high school groups, high school groups, those kids that are needing those community hours, of course. My kid, one of those seniors out there that are trying to, comply with what they need to come up with. So please, everybody, call the 1-800-272-3900, volunteer for any of these 3 community events that we have coming up. We need you.
And by the way, if you want to just go straight to the walk for the website, it's alz.org/walk. So you can do that as well if you don't want to navigate the whole website. Melissa Guerra has been joining us this morning. We've been talking a little bit about her experience with the Alzheimer's group since the inception as the founder and what it is now and volunteerism. Melissa, thanks for your time. God bless you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Because it's made such a difference in so many other people's lives. And that's what this is about. Any final thoughts on what we've talked about this morning?
No, just patience. If you didn't have patience before you're dealing with an Alzheimer's patient, you better learn it really quick.
Yeah. It's interesting that you
get a sense of humor.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting that you said that the walk was fun, because you don't associate fun with Alzheimer's, but, it's one event that's a source of hope and fun at the same time. So.
Yeah, lots of info out there.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa.
The day of. Yep.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Melissa,
Thank you.
for being here with us, with Ruben and I this morning, but also for the past 20 years of service, because you go back 20 years, and that's one support group a month over 20 years adds up to a lot. And then that's not even talking about all the other stuff that you did for Alzheimer's other than just the support group. So we just want to thank you. You definitely have earned the ticket into the pearly gates. Definitely, because you are doing God's work, and you've done God's work.
That's not what I was aiming for, but okay.
I
just thought it was.
Well, that's how I see it.
I know.
So thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the invite.
Yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
Jerry Gutzel will be back for the next episode of All's in This Together.
Yes.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mindy.
One last final thought.
Yeah.
Share these All's in This Together podcasts. So we understand that a lot of people can't tune in at this exact time. Lots of people at work right now, but these do live on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, and we welcome you all to please help us spread the word. There's a wealth of knowledge on these podcasts, and we would appreciate it very much if you just shared them with those that you think need to hear the information.
All right. Thanks, Mindy.
Thanks.